Today I'm going to talk about. mm, mm, I was going to talk about the shamanic view of mental illness. The shamanic view of mental illness is that people who are having mental illness, uh, it's because they're having a spiritual awakening. A spiritual awakening is latent human talents coming online. And what are some of these talents? Would be becoming sensitive to unseen beings and entities, the spirit world, perhaps becoming sensitive to other realms of consciousness. Some people might become attuned to, for example, the fairy realm. Some people become attuned to ghosts. Some people might become attuned to ancestral spirits. Those are just some ideas. And when people have things like what are called like schizophrenia or psychosis, traditional medicine is totally clueless. Prescribe pills. And my opinion is these psychiatrists should have their medical licenses revoked because they're totally clueless. They haven't experienced what these people are experiencing. And they think they know it all because they read some medical textbook and they've got the ability to prescribe antipsychotic medications. And then what happens is the antipsychotic medicines in some people seem to ameliorate some of the symptoms that they're having. But the thing is that these symptoms that they're having of contacting other spirits, etc., are part of becoming a shaman. And in Western countries, we don't have anyone who acknowledges that shamans are real. Shamanism is real. This is all considered pseudoscience at best, and most likely mental illness. Whereas in indigenous cultures, cultures that are not dominated by Western medicine and big pharma, these shamans are highly respected because they become great healers and they become great teachers of wisdom and spiritual teachings. So they're very helpful to the community. But when these things happen, we really don't have anywhere to go with this. People are automatically dropped off at the emergency ward and then they're sent to the psych ward. This is a very shitty way to deal with these spiritual emergences. It's not a spiritual emergency, it's an emergence of spiritual talents. The best thing for these people to have is if we had a center where people who had already gone through these spiritual awakenings were, and because they would be able to guide these people. I'm not talking about the lunatics that pick up a sword or a machete and, violently want to come around and chop off someone's head. I'm not talking about lunatics that want to pick up a semi-automatic rifle and go on a shooting spree. That is not the same thing. That is called demonic possession. A normal human will not do these violent things. But people possessed by demonic entities will do these things. humans. Are there some people who are born demonic? Yes. Yes, there are some humans who are born demonic. And basically, anyone on the scale of human consciousness who has a consciousness calibration under 200 is demonic. Anything under 200 is demonic. And a lot of people who calibrate under 540 in unconditional love have a lot of episodes of being demonic. So not demonic 100% of the time, but often demonic, depending on where your frequency is. Why is that? Because if I say that, your conscious calibration that I get from doing a muscle test is 200, during the daytime, you will have periods when you might be at a higher level. You might be up at 202. At other times, you might be down at 162. In other words, you're going to fluctuate. And if I'm just going to give you like your consciousness calibration as one number, that's going to be like, I don't know if it's an average or it's like your propensity is to be around this number. But there are non-physical demonics that can come in and possess you. It's like the old story about having a good angel on this shoulder and a bad angel on this shoulder, and they're both whispering ideas into your ear. But with full demonic possession, this little devil gets right into your mind, and this angelic one is not there at all. Why does that happen? Mostly because it just happens. I can't explain it. I don't know why. What is supposed to happen with demonically inclined humans is they incarnate as a human and they are exposed to other humans who are hopefully of a higher consciousness. So they can learn to let go of their demonic tendencies. However, in human history, up until 1987, the collective consciousness of all the humans on the planet was demonic. It was only until 1987 that the collective moved above 200. So you need to go look up the scale of human consciousness to see where we're going. So this is the reason why human history is littered with dead, mangled bodies and horrible, tortured people. And, why Nero fiddled while Rome burned. And why Adolf Hitler had lampshades made out of the skin of human people from the concentration camps. Sick, demonic minds. Very low consciousness. So, where are we going with this now today? Well, we still have demonic personalities, and quite a number of the people in high places are frequently demonic. Frequently demonic. The vast military budgets, are they logical? Yes. Yes, because you have to have some way of protecting your nation against lunatics that are threatening to launch nuclear missiles against you. So, is the threat of North Korea real? Well, if you have documents that say that they have intercontinental ballistic missiles or ballistic missiles in general that can travel a long distance and can threaten places like highly populated Japan, and if you have got evidence that North Korea has had nuclear explosions, this is a clear and present danger. And you cannot be a pacifist and say, we're going to unilaterally disarm. You cannot do that. That is illogical. You must have a defense against lunatics like the Kim regimes of North Korea. So yeah, disarmament is a stupid policy when you have got lunatics with their thumbs on the trigger to launch nuclear weapons or other kinds of terrorist attacks, etc. It's unfortunate, but everyone knows in their own communities there are some people who are absolutely, they need to be locked away because there is something wrong with them. They are highly violent. Can you cure violent people? Can you cure every violent person? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. People with very low consciousness doesn't mean that they're stupid. So this is a key point. People who calibrate under 200, it doesn't mean they are what we used to call mentally retarded. Some of the people who calibrate under 200 have got incredibly good intellects, exceptionally smart people. So, in the movie Silence of the Lambs, the lunatic played by Anthony Hopkins would be an example of someone incredibly smart, but Clarice, I'd like to serve up somebody with fava beans and a nice Chianti wine. So, and if these kind of people get into positions of power, well, then you have someone like Pol Pot of Cambodia who did genocide on his own people. You have Joseph Stalin, who engineered famines in places like Ukraine. You had, was he general or admiral? He was a military man. Tojo, who was the military dictator of Imperial Japan during World War II. You had Idi Amin, the president of Uganda, who liked to eat live monkey brains. He would bring in monkeys and take a machete and cut off the top of their skull, and then he would spoon out their brains while the monkey was still basically alive. There are so many examples in human history of cunning intelligence, highly dangerous people, people who can pretend to be cured of their mental demonic thing. How are you ever going to trust this person? The only way you could be sure that the person was healed of their demonic tendencies is to spend a lot of time with them. A lot of time with them. You could have expert people that do muscle testing. You could have people who are very psychically attuned. You could have a big team of people who have got these empathic abilities, intuitional abilities, psychic abilities, to spend a lot of time with these people to figure out if their demonic tendencies are extinguished. How are you going to help someone like one of these demonic humans, let go of your demonic tendencies? Um, I don't think there's like a one sentence answer. Some people will say a lot of these demonic tendencies come from trauma. A lot of these demonic tendencies come from addiction to power over others. Someone who wants to play God with everyone else in there. So the president of China is an example. The current president of China is a highly dangerous man. I would not trust him. And it makes me really disgusted that countries sign away, Western countries sign away all of their rights. For example, Canada signed a treaty with China that supersedes the Canadian Constitution and Canadian courts in order to get a trade deal with China. This was the conservative government of Stephen Harper. Stephen Harper was an idiot. Loved by conservatives in Canada, loved, but truly an idiot. He never learned the lesson of Neville Chamberlain, who was the Prime Minister of Great Britain, who was dealing with Adolf Hitler before World War II. Chamberlain was famous for his policy of appeasement. Basically, we'll give you whatever you want, Hitler, just don't go to war. And Chamberlain was famous for having a bunch of papers signed by Adolf Hitler, and he said, peace in our time, and he was waving these documents that Hitler had agreed to. It didn't take very long before Hitler sent his armies marching through Europe. You cannot be a doormat for dangerous people. So, Stephen Harper's Canadian treaty with China, the height of lunacy, stupidity, and someone who is an example of why democracy doesn't work. Democracy doesn't work because it puts idiots in power. The current Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, is the best example of an idiot in power. Justin Trudeau's claim to fame is he was a snowboard instructor, and I think he taught arts at a private school in Vancouver. Incredibly stupid man. Incredibly stupid. The kind of people you need if you're going to have countries, you need to have, someone wants to say philosopher kings. You need to have people that are highly educated and highly attuned to wisdom. Wisdom is it's not the same as knowledge. Knowledge is knowledge, but wisdom is the right use of knowledge, knowing when to use this knowledge, and that it comes from an old soul. An old soul. And, a real leader, well, we don't see too many of them. I would say the Western democracies are led by dangerous people and or idiots. The Bushes. George Bush, the son, George W. Bush, was a complete idiot in the category of Justin Trudeau. Mental idiot. I don't think he really would have passed grade 5, 5th grade. I think that's basically his intelligence level. Incredibly stupid person. And highly dangerous, manipulated by highly dangerous, cunning people like Donald Rumsfeld and Dick Cheney. Very intelligent and very dangerous people. George W. Bush's father, George H.W. Bush, was an assassin. Highly intelligent and highly dangerous person. A man, was he good for America? No, not good for America. These kind of people, highly dangerous, should never be in positions of power over others. Never, 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 never. And these kind of people had international groupings where people like themselves decided on the fate of the world. Haven't seen too many examples of what you would call statesmen, wise, intelligent people who really understand street smarts. Because a lot of countries are run by thugs. Do you need the enormous trillions of dollars that the United States spends on military? Is there that much danger from North Korea and China? Well, the arms race is a horrible blight on humanity, because these enormous sums of money could be spent on their own country in so many ways, helping the people of the country. It's basically because you've got this dangerous person in China or Russia that you ignore all the other dangers that are everyday dangers that the people of your country experience. For example, in Canada, none of the prime ministers have addressed the fact that there are communities, usually of Aboriginal people, who don't have access to clean water. So, countries like Canada have budgets for foreign aid, donating money to foreign countries to help them. But there are people that are living in third world conditions in some of these, what used to be known as Indian reservations, without clean water. And, it's 2020 and we still have this issue. Yes, Canada has got a huge issue with the same thing as all the other countries. And why I bring up Canada is because that's where I live. And I'm very familiar with these things. What's the bigger threat? North Korea's nuclear missiles, or you getting some disease like waterborne pathogens? And, these foreign aid donations, that Justin Trudeau will write a check for, we never hear about. What was the money spent on? And these foreign countries, never hear. It's just huge number of zeros on this check to nobody even knows what country it goes to. It's just, it's announced by Justin Trudeau, we're going to send this money, and we never hear about it. What do I think happens with the money? I think it goes directly to corrupt people. Corrupt people and corrupt organizations. I have no faith in politicians. There is never going to be me and my happy place on this planet because of there being so many self-serving people in positions of power in government and especially in corporate world. self-serving people at the top who pay themselves millions of dollars a year while their frontline employees make minimum wage. The time of my talking is over. Thank you for listening. I'm not going to talk about the communist dictatorship of Cuba. Some people, especially in the USA, think Cuba is, the worst place on earth. I have not been to Cuba, but my feeling is no. I think whatever you see that is horrible about Cuba is actually true about your own country. The illusion of democracy in Western countries, it is ruled by the rich and powerful. They're powerful because they're rich. The rule of the moneyed class, the corporate titans. One of my first jobs, my boss was talking about how we were going to set price. And he said, basically, we're not going to leave any money on the table. In other words, we're going to charge what the market will bear. In other words, the highest price we can get is what we're going to get. And that's what they teach you in business school. Maximize profits. And everyone has got this ingrained in their head. Maximize profits for shareholders. That's the purpose of corporations, is to put money in the hands of shareholders. Some people say it's to create jobs. No. Companies are not there to provide jobs. They need humans to do certain jobs in order to make profits. But if you don't need the human to do the job, then they're going to cut the job and cut the human. It's not to make jobs. Companies are not about making jobs for humans. It's kind of like, if we need you, we'll use you, but that is not the purpose. The sole purpose of corporations is the bottom line, the money at the what do you call it? It's basically your income after taxes. So profits are the only driving factor, and having to meet government regulations. So people who talk about enlightened capitalism, there's no such thing as enlightened capitalism. As long as capitalism is always put in the accountant's hands, and how much profit is going to the shareholders at the end of the day, and that's capitalism. Building more and more capital. More for me, my company, more. That's why stock markets exist, so you can buy into a stream of revenue that is shed by these corporations. It has nothing to do with improving the good for humans, unless you're a shareholder. If you're the shareholder, then your corporation is about putting money in your pocket. And to do that, you have to have a customer who's willing to buy your product. So you have to have a good product that people are willing to buy. So from that perspective, yes, it gives us things that are goods. Why is it that we constantly have higher and higher prices of things? Because companies want higher prices, and they know if they create large conglomerates, trusts. They can squeeze out the competition, and more competition, according to economics, that will help bring down your prices. And big companies know this, so they buy up the competition. It happens all the time. And this was an old problem. Standard Oil of John Rockefeller, the American government of the day, late 1800s, I suppose, 1900, saw that was just one example of enormous concentration of an industry in one company. One company that could dictate the market price to everyone else. And the US government said this is not good public policy, because basically it's domination by Rockefeller. So they forced the breakup of Standard Oil Trust into a bunch of other oil companies. But since that time, all of this breaking up of Standard Oil has been allowed to be reversed, and these oil companies have been allowed to buy up each other and become fewer and fewer in number. Why? Because that's always going to be a priority for corporations to get a monopoly in their marketplace. It's a wonderful thing if you're a CEO of a company that is dominant in the marketplace. And buying out your competitors is one way you can do that. It's not good for the public, because if someone is your sole supplier of good that you need, they're free to raise the price as high as they want. And if there's no competitive prices because these corporations have also bought the leaders of the regulatory agencies of the government, and this happens all the time, even in the USA, believe it or not, especially in the USA, big pharmaceutical companies, big defense companies, put their own people into the regulatory apparatus of the government so that they can get their way. And it creates what are known as enormous barriers to entry of new companies. Barriers to entry make it difficult, and no one is going to do it if you've got very onerous regulations on the products that you're selling. So it is very expensive to bring a new product to market. People are not going to put their money into doing it because it's too difficult, too big of a hurdle to get into the marketplace. And when you've got these enormous corporations with, millions of dollars, billions of dollars, how are you going to go against them? So we have an enormous problem on planet Earth. It's the same problem that we had over 100 years ago. What are we going to do about it? It seems very difficult to get political solutions because most politicians are bought and paid for by these enormous corporations. So you have to pray for a miracle that we have enormous leaps in consciousness among humans of all kinds.